Denny Bouanga has a very dangerous addiction to goals, and he needs help, and we're all here to make sure he doesn't get it.
Yeah, he looks like he's obsessed with it, and honestly, it's concerning. I've seen
don't
that
think
look
it's healthy.
before. I've been to Vegas and had that look in my eyes, and I know what it's like, and I hope that he understands that he is not defined by his goal scoring. He is more than that. Welcome to Happy Foot, Sad Foot, the only LAFC podcast hosted by people who don't know what they're talking about. I'm Travis Hellwig.
And I'm Darren Miller. Welcome to our preview of both games this week. Our Champions League game on Wednesday at 7:30 that you can watch on FS2, and our regular season MLS matchup against the Seattle Sounders on Saturday at 1 p.m. on Apple TV+. And just a reminder, 10 minutes after both games, we'll be live on YouTube with the post-game call-in show. There's a link to our YouTube in the show notes if you want to watch live or call in to chat, hang out with us. It'll be a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Hope to see you there.
Also on this week's episode, I chatted with Jeremiah Oshan, editor-in-chief of the Sounders at Heart, the biggest Sounders blog, about this year's Seattle team and just what their fan base thinks of us down here in Los Angeles. That's coming up in the second half of the show. But first, Darren, unfortunately, we got to do listener-mandated banter.
Oh, come on.
The people demand it.
Banter, podcast banter. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Pow! What the fuckers? What the fuckaneers?
I vomed in my pants.
Here's my... disgusting. Here's my banter that I can lead us off with. I took my antidepressant, not on a full stomach, and boy, am I nauseous right now. Are we having fun?
Oh, no.
Is it? Do people
That's a fun one
want
because you can't tell if you went out of Mark Maron or not. I think you did.
I went out of Mark Maron. I am nauseous right now, but we're gonna make it work. And I just want everyone here to know that when they demanded banter, this is the type of stuff I'm gonna give you.
Overshare. That's the best way to banter. Just be real, you know? Open up.
Darren, how's your gut health?
Gut health? Oh my God. I have no idea. That's kind of the problem, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I had a rough weekend. We had a party for Keaton. He turned 5.
Happy birthday to your son, Keaton.
Thank you. He had a birthday party with two friends, and we had a bounce house in our backyard. It's the first time I've ever done that. It was insane. It took up the entire backyard. Not that it's big, but the bounce house was big. I was a 36-year-old man jumping around on a bounce house. So that's what I did all Saturday before when was the last game?
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Oof. I noticed you seemed like your calves hurt while we were doing the live stream.
Yeah, couldn't you tell?
Yeah.
I was surprised you didn't say anything.
Your calves were throbbing. It came loud and clear through the stream.
Wong, wong, wong.
Well, that's enough fucking banter.
There's balloons back there still left over.
You know, I saw them and I was like, they sort of look like you were like a ball pit or something. And I'm like, I don't know. This is a world I don't understand. Let's get into the show. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. You got to teach me about this game. Okay. Each week, I don't have time to figure out what the hell's going to happen in the next game. I don't know who the Sounders are. I've seen them play once or twice. Who knows? But look, I got a life. I got bouncy houses to jump around in and kids to, not fall from a bouncy house and break their heads. I got balloons to play in. There's a lot to do, and just like studying to prepare for some kind of LAFC-based test is just not one of them. Mm-hmm. So every week I make Travis, who does have some kind of LAFC sickness,
it's called
just
free
study
time
for me.
Yeah.
Free time. I do vaguely remember the concept. So Travis puts a whole study guide together for me. He's my textbook, and this is my study session. And I'm all ready for the exam when it comes time for the game. So that is a segment we like to call Storylines.
Wow. Darren, it's always an honor to hear what you think of all the work I put into this podcast. It means the world.
I think you're throwing your life away, really. Yeah.
I'll never understand the pure joy of jumping on a bounce house all day long.
Am I throwing my life away too? Possibly. We don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I do think by the end of this, we'll decide what's better, having a child or not having a child. So let's get into it. As we said at the top, this week we have two games. A bunch of storylines coming in. And the first storyline coming into this week's 2 games is, Darren, LAFC is back, baby. Every single week we've done a match preview on this podcast, and I've come to you and I've said, I'm worried about our midfield depth. I'm worried about our scoring without Arango. I'm worried we can't sustain the number of games we have each week. Well, Darren,
There's nothing
I'm
left.
here to say, fuck that. We look great. Our midfield depth looks fine. Tillman took Sifu's spot against the Revolution and looked transcendent, scored his first goal, and made MLS Team of the Week. He even nutmegged 2 different people just for fun. Ilie Sanchez came out of the game, and we still looked good, which is never normal. I am no longer worried about our midfield depth.
So are we going to blow it now?
Fuck.
I feel like you're jinxing it. This is I was not worried either until now.
Look, I'm gonna give it. I give it straight. I was nervous, and everything I've been nervous about has not come true. And I need to just admit that I've been wrong along the way. My scoring concerns have been proven to be very stupid. We've only played 2 games, and we're currently tied for highest goal differential in the league when every other team has played 3 games. Denny Bouanga has scored 5 goals in the span of a week. Stipe Buke, the Michael Stipe of the MLS, has proved to be a dangerous, albeit inconsistent option up top. You look like you wanted to say something, Darren. Michael
Stipe? I just all I wanted to do was allow it. That's all. I just wanted to let it go.
But I mean, our front line looks incredible. We talked about it on the live stream, but like, we don't need a number 9 if they're rotating the way that they're rotating.
I mean, Denny Bouanga has a very dangerous addiction to goals, and he needs help, and we're all here to make sure he doesn't get it.
Yeah, he looks like he's obsessed with it, and honestly, it's concerning. I've seen that look before. I've been to Vegas and had that look in my eyes, and I know what it's like, and I hope that he understands that he is not defined by his goal scoring. He is more than that.
Well, what happens is you score, and then what you do is you need that high, and so you need to score again. But when you score the next time,
it doesn't feel
it's not as big.
So you need to score more.
That's what he does in the first game. And the only way that he can try to satiate himself is more goals, which is just very sad to see. And I hope that, as soon as the season ends and we win another championship, he can find a way to turn his life around. But
right. Well,
we'll just have to watch it happen.
While it happens, I'm happy to watch his descent, his Cara Delevingne descent into addiction.
Topical.
And while he wasn't perfect in the back, Aaron Long did a solid job taking over for our Italian Prince Chiellini, along with Palencia in the back. We were able to destroy one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference using our second string lineup for most of the game. And that bodes very well for us rotating the roster over the course of what is hopefully going to be a very long run in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think the more we start to play bench players and they do well, like, we're just building up more and more cushion for ourselves. It's going to compound, and it's awesome to watch. You start to have players come in and just get themselves ready to come in another time, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, we'll just have a team full of weapons, which is honestly, I feel like we need, that's necessary. It's not just like, oh, that would be so nice to have. There's so many games. We need that. So I don't know what are other teams doing? How are they pulling it off? They're just going to all die in the vine somewhere.
Usually people punt on a tournament. They won't play their best players, and they'll be like, we can't do it. And we talked a little bit about that in my interview with Jeremiah at the Sounders blog that we'll get into, but they didn't make the playoffs last year, but they won the Champions League. So a big, scary story this week is, how long will we be missing Ryan Hollingshead, our superstar defenseman? We're recording this a bit early this week on a Monday night, so more info might be out there by the time you're listening. But after sustaining a hit on Sunday that would have been a foul in hockey, but somehow wasn't a foul in soccer, Ryan Hollingshead came off the pitch after what was essentially 10 seconds in the game, and he was indicating to his ribs or lungs. Some tweets said that he was spitting up blood but had no lacerations in his mouth, which is not a good sign. That seems to indicate something going on inside. Steve Cherundolo after the game said he's not doing well, but there's no updates. We haven't heard anything as of today, but I don't have any information. If it's a collapsed lung or a broken rib, Ryan Hollingshead is going to miss a lot of games for this squad. So our depth in the back, which I used to feel very good about, gets a lot thinner without him. He's been a proven vital member of our defense and also an important offensive threat, assisting 2 of Bouanga's goals in Costa Rica as well. So very soon we're going to see how well Palencia fits with the squad, and both him and Aaron Long, I think, are about to play more minutes than we were anticipating.
Yeah. Oh, man. We were on the live stream after the game, and there were a lot of people in the comments calling out different possibilities for what could be going on with Hollingshead. And everyone seemed to stick to just really, really bad options. I have yet to think of anything better. It's not good that nothing's come out. No news is not good news in a situation like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like by the time this is released, we'll have heard more, but once I heard that he had blood in his mouth, but no cuts, I was like, oh, that seems bad.
Yeah.
And also the question remains, would this injury have occurred if he had the mustache still? And I kind of think no. I kind of think
of course not. No.
It's a lucky mustache.
Yeah, things like that don't happen when you have a mustache like that. People may have forgotten how good that mustache was. I'll tell you one thing. I don't think Ryan Hollingshead is forgetting how good it was when he's sitting in a hospital bed. He's thinking, that mustache would have prevented all of this. It's regret. That's what he's feeling right now.
Again, we have 2 games this week. Our first one is against Alajuelense of Costa Rica. That was my second attempt, and
getting so much better.
Last time I have to say it. It's at home on Wednesday, and then we again have a game on Saturday against Seattle, which is our first away game of the season, of the MLS season. We talked about the Costa Rican side last week a bit, so I kind of want to start with the Seattle game. The first storyline of the Seattle game is that, once again, Darren, this is a rivalry game. Seattle and LAFC have a storied history of what is now considered one of our rivalries, along with the Galaxy, Portland, and Philly. Seems like we only have rivals, Darren.
Well, when you're at the top, everyone wants to grab onto an ankle and see if they can climb their way up,
I think San Jose would be very hurt that we're not including them in our rivalry, and I don't feel bad.
We took the scenic route around all of California and skipped over them. The less scenic route, I guess.
Yeah, we took the 5 straight. We played, so the rivalry comes from a few places. We played our very first game as a club in Seattle, and we won thanks to Diego Rossi scoring our very first goals, and we wrote a fun little song about him, which reminded me, I missed when we had player-specific chants that would come out when they did something well.
What a cool achievement as a player.
Yeah.
I made it on this team. That's cool. Oh, I'm playing well. That's cool. Oh my God, I reached specific chant level at this team.
And we only when they chant for Carlos Vela, it's like Carlos Vela, and it's like the Diego Rossi song ruled. And I heard somewhere, and I'm stealing it from someone, and I don't remember. I think it was another podcast. So if it was yours, I apologize. I don't know where I heard it from, or maybe I'm making it up and I thought somebody else came up with it because I liked it so much. But I think, the song Tequila, where we go bump, bump, ba da bump, bump, ba da da. You know that song?
Yeah.
We should do that, but instead of saying tequila, we say Bouanga. That's my contribution.
That's good. I like that.
Or they can play it over the loudspeaker and we all say Bouanga instead of tequila. Just some thoughts I've been having. Or been stealing from someone else. I'm unsure which.
Right. We're not sure if those are thoughts you've been having or just things you've been hearing.
We also played our very first home game. Shout out to whoever
thought of that.
Yeah, shout out. If it ends up happening, it was either my or your idea. We played our very first home game as a club against Seattle and won thanks to that Lauren Simon banger. So we sort of felt like we had Seattle's number, but then in 2019, they destroyed our historic season by taking us down in the conference finals of the MLS playoffs. They mucked down our play and grinded us down with fouls. And that's the game where LAFC fans really started hating Seattle. It was a nasty game. I was very depressed afterwards. They did the exact same thing in the following year's COVID playoffs, and they knocked us out again. So 2 years in a row, they took us out of the playoffs. I also think this rivalry sort of comes from the fact that both of our teams are incredibly well run. Like LAFC has stolen some of the golden child glow that Seattle had as an expansion franchise. Yeah. It sort of was Seattle's, and then Atlanta took it for like a year or two, and then LAFC has been running with it since. And I think they might be a little jealous that we have that sort of like backing from the league that they once had. We have that credibility as a club that they don't necessarily still have. I mean, they do, but we're the special child now, I think.
Right. I remember when there was a lot of buzz when Seattle was going to get a team. And then it was everyone else was really excited that they came out so hard. Not only were they so good, but their fans were so into it right away. Yeah. And there was like a big buzz about it. I don't know what it was like with expansion teams before then, but there seems to be a trend now of expansion teams having a bit of, I don't know if you'd call it beginner's luck because a lot of them have sustained the quality, but expansion teams are good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at St. Louis City. St. Louis City is the best team in the league, and everyone thought they were going to be the worst, literally the worst team in the league. It really feels like there's some sort of roadmap now for how to make it work. And I do think it started with Seattle and Portland. I talked about that a little bit in my interview with Jeremiah as well. The second big storyline that I have for that game is Seattle actually legit this year? So last year, Seattle looked like absolute dog shit in league play, but that was mainly because they expended all of their energy being the first MLS team to win Champions League, something we're desiring to replicate this year. I guess not replicate because we can't become the first MLS team. This year, we're going to be the first MLS team to win Champions League.
Fuck you, Seattle. We did it. We're the first now.
But after the first 2 weeks, Seattle looked like they were back to their old legendary selves. They decimated Colorado 4-0, and they beat Real Salt Lake 2-0. And then this last week, they finally had to take on a real contender in Cincinnati, and they looked less than stellar. They looked sloppy. And FC Cincinnati came away with the victory. They played well, but Seattle definitely made some big mistakes. All that is to say, I don't know what type of team we're getting when we play Seattle, and Seattle's an incredibly tough place to play. Like you said, their fans are great. Their field is turf, which means almost definitely Chiellini will not be playing that game. We're going to have to play Aaron Long because we want to prevent Chiellini from getting injuries. I think our best team is going to be fielded against the Costa Rican side, which means, again, we might see the lineup we saw with the Revolution, which I was scared about and was proven wrong. Who knows if it would still work out on the road? We've yet to test that. And Seattle is very talented.
Yeah. Also, the hardships of a road game, as far as like the logistics and everything, has definitely been tested with us. But I don't know if I would call like that fan base, like they don't know us so well enough to like taunt us. You know what I mean? I don't know that it was like that hostile of an environment necessarily. Like they were, yeah, they were good fans over there. But I would imagine it was more like cheering for their team than it was like hostility towards ours.
Yes, there's not really animosity between those teams.
Right. Like an MLS team at home is going to be like, you're in our house now. Let's see what you got. And it's going to be a little different, I think.
People actively hate us. I do think we're like a team that is hated around the league, and people really want to beat us, and fans especially really want to beat us because we're the most attractive team and the most popular team and the team that everyone wishes they were on.
Just generally the also coolest, I guess.
The richest and
and the most fun.
Most fun.
I think we have the best stadium, probably.
Horniest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally, pivot from there. And finally, Wednesday night, we are once again playing a Costa Rican team that's looking for revenge. And so that leaves us with our final storyline of the week. Will they beat us by 4 goals at home? Because it's CONCACAF and shit like that happens. However, the only way we can lose and not move on from this leg of the CONCACAF Champions League is if this team beats us by 4 goals at home. Darren, what do you think?
No, we're good. What happens if they win 3-0?
Then we go to
just
penalties.
Like we did. Oh, we just end the game with penalties? I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I can't wrap my head around shit.
Maybe there's extra time, but I think we go straight to penalties. And it's very funny. Okay. It's funny that you could win 3-0 and it's like, well, we still haven't sealed the deal.
A nail biter.
Those are our storylines for this week. When we come back, I'm going to talk to one of the biggest names in Seattle Sounders media, and I'll find out just what those depressed, pale weirdos think of us here at LAFC. And we're back. He's the editor-in-chief of the Sounders at Heart blog at SB Nation and the host of the Nos Audietas podcast. Please welcome Jeremiah Oshan.
Yeah, you got it.
I know, I was really nervous. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm happy to do it.
So this is the first time we're doing this. We're bringing on some people into enemy territory and asking them about their team. So last year, Seattle, they won the Champions League, and then they forgot to play in Major League Soccer. They forgot that those games were happening. Yeah. Then the beginning of this season, you guys have looked incredible. Last week, you had a hiccup in Cincinnati. What's the general vibe in the fan base right now? How are you guys feeling about the squad?
You know, it's a good question because I don't always know from a week-to-week basis. Like, I know how I feel, which is I feel pretty good about the team. I think that they seem to be mentally in the right place from, and I do think last year was more of a isolated incident where, they had a bunch of injuries. I do think there was some complacency that set in terms of what they thought, how they thought the season was going to go. And I think they came into this preseason with a different mentality, and it looked really good in the first two games. It didn't go quite as expected against FC Cincinnati, but there are some frustrations. The Sounders haven't won a road game since last July, so that's like a stretch of 10 games. Yeah, so it's been tough on the road. They've been better at home, but yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some frustration. I think there's a fair number of Sounders fans who sort of looked at last year as, yeah, Champions League was great, but then they're more worried about the way the season ended. And frankly, that was a big chunk of the season, right? For the last 4 months of the season, the Sounders were really bad. Their results were really bad. And there was sort of this sense of, well, we should rebuild the team and our core is pretty old. Instead, they basically brought everyone back and are hoping they'll stay healthier. But, it's a little mixed bag.
Cool. Well, I feel like I think of the Seattle Sounders as consistently a team I don't want to face, even when you're doing poorly. Like, I feel like as an outside fan, I am not happy when we have a fixture against the Sounders.
Yeah,
if you were talking to someone who has never watched the Seattle Sounders before, who are the players that you would say we should watch out for, we should be afraid of, that you think are the ones that a casual viewer should be paying attention to?
So one thing that'll be interesting is this week, I think we're going to get Raul Ruidiaz back starting. That will be the first start that he's made in the MLS campaign so far. He did start the Club World Cup game, but he had an injury that kept him from starting. He's played the last two games. He's someone who can make a goal out of absolutely anything. He's a really fun player to watch. He doesn't necessarily, you don't see him on every possession necessarily, but he's someone who you should always keep an eye on because he can pop up anywhere. He can score from, seemingly anywhere on the field. And he's really fun. The guy on the other end of the spectrum who you will notice because he's on the ball all the time is Nico Ladero. He's the guy who really brought the Sounders into their current era. He signed with them in 2016. Since he came here, the Sounders have won 2 MLS Cups, Champions League. They've been to 4 MLS Cup finals. And he's really the driving force behind the team. He hasn't been quite as active this year, and that's sort of by design. The Sounders, I think, want to disperse some of the playmaking. And one of the big reasons why is because another central midfielder named João Paulo, who missed most of last year, whose injury is really one of the big reasons the Sounders missed the playoffs. He's been back this year. He looks to be fully fit and sort of taking up where he left off. And he's a really, he's more of a hard-nosed player. He's Brazilian, but he's not your average Brazilian. He's more of a guy who's going to get into a tackle. He can make some nice passes. And he's someone that I think outsiders oftentimes gravitate towards as the guy you grudgingly respect because he doesn't do a lot of the silly stuff that drive people crazy, but he does a lot of that hard-nosed thing. He puts in a hard tackle, makes the smart pass, and is just sort of like a clever player that's really easy to like. And then you have guys like Jordan Morris, who's someone that if you're a fan of the national team, you're familiar with. But those are probably the key players.
Right. Those are the ones I'm scared of. So that's helpful.
Fair enough.
I mean, LAFC fans consider Seattle a rival. I mean, I think because we got knocked out of the playoffs twice by you guys. We played our first home and our first away game against you guys.
That's right.
Does Seattle view LAFC as a rival? Obviously not in the vein of Portland, but how does the fan base view LAFC? And you can be as mean as you want. This is a safe space.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything mean. I think the Sounders fans do see LAFC sort of as, if not a actual rival, because I think when it comes to rivals, you're right. The Timbers really take up spots A, B, and maybe the Whitecaps come in at C, but then the Timbers are like D, E, and F. Right. And it's like and it doesn't matter how bad the Timbers are or how good the Sounders are. That is a game that the Sounders just can't, like, these two fan bases are linked in ways that aren't always easy to understand. And from a rival perspective, there's just not much room for another real rival. But in terms of the on-field aspects of it, I think the Sounders absolutely view LAFC as someone they measure themselves against. They're constantly comparing themselves to what LAFC is able to accomplish. I think the things that LAFC is able to do drives Sounders fans crazy. and it's an organization that the Sounders are very aware of, that they're very, like, I think they aspire to certain aspects of it. And like it's also, when the fan base does things like, they had this great showing in Costa Rica where, 500 fans showed up down there and they're jumping in unison. You're going to, of course, hear Sounders fans saying like, oh, we've done the same thing before. Right. Because it's just like they can't escape. I think Sounders fans can't escape the sort of, LA is bright and glitzy and gets a lot of attention. And I think Seattle always has sort of a chip on its shoulder about, being sort of like up in the Pacific Northwest and forgotten by everyone.
Yeah. Sad, depressed.
Right. Exactly.
Into poetry.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I grew up on the East Coast and I wasn't into MLS. And when Seattle and Portland came into the league, that's when I started to take notice of MLS and those fan bases being as exciting as they are. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, I went to a Galaxy game and I was like, that's not what I saw on the TV. That's not what I'm feeling. And so when LAFC came to town, it really was, I was measuring it up against those fans and that fan base that you guys established. And I was like, oh, that's the vibe that I'm happy that we're not recreating, but trying to be a part of. Yeah. And so I do think that they're, at least mentally, LAFC fans do measure themselves up against you guys.
Well, that's good to hear.
But as the host of this podcast, I have to say, fuck you and your team. We hate you. Before I DM'd you, I DM'd Drew Carey to ask him to be on the show, and he didn't respond. Do you think he was afraid of my tough questions?
Probably. Yeah. I think Drew has I think he's very frustrated that, just like Sounders fans feel like we have been usurped by the newest and shiniest new fan base, I'm sure he also has a lot of antipathy towards LAFC because of Will Ferrell suddenly taking up all the attention that he used to get.
Yeah. There's going to be a murder and I'll know who did it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Jeremiah. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Yeah. So most of my writing you can find at sounderatheart.com. I do a podcast, Nos Audietes. And we actually just started a Substack as well. So we have a newsletter that we put out twice a week with, and other things on there. That's nosaudietes.substack.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. When we come back, we're going to make some bets.
And we're back. Now it's time for a segment called Bet It and Forget It.
Bet it and forget it.
Every week, Travis and I are going to end the show with a bet for this next week's game or pair of games. We make an outlandish prediction for that week, something that almost definitely will not happen, but could happen. Each week, we both put up $5. If no one hits, the money rolls over to the next week. Eventually, by the time someone's weird prediction comes true, they might win a good chunk of change, which means the other person loses a good chunk of change, and it's kind of devastating. So last week we had, my bet was a total of 10 posts or crossbars over the course of 2 games, which you were pretty nervous about when I brought it up.
It really seemed possible.
and it didn't
You
come
got two.
close to happening.
Both were Jenny Bawanga.
We did satisfy the premise of this segment, I think, in the fact that it was really exciting when it happened twice.
And
I was really into it.
People tweeted to us, and our friends texted us what had happened.
Yeah, I mean, this is the segment doing its job. But yeah, that was not close.
Didn't happen. Mine was,
what was yours?
That there would be some sort of visa problem at the border, and one of our players did not make it back after a day or two.
Did not see any news about that.
If it happened, maybe we retroactively give me $40, but I haven't heard anything, so we got to say that it didn't cash. But that means that since our bets haven't cashed, we're up to $50 this week. This is the real fucking deal now.
We have already designated this as rich territory. We will be rich. One of us will be rich. One of us will be poor. And
so this is something that I'm going to start taking this more seriously, because I've been kind of doing goofy like bets that don't really have to do with the game or just sort of around the game. And so I'm going to make a prediction that you might say is not outlandish enough, and we can have a conversation about it.
That's good. I'm going to do the same thing.
Okay. My prediction, which I'm very confident in, is that Aaron Long this week is going to score a brace in one of the games. That doesn't mean he scores one goal in each game. It means he scores 2 goals in one of the games.
Okay.
The
prediction is just a 2-goal game?
The prediction is that Aaron Long scores 2 goals in a single game.
I don't mean any 2-goal game. Yeah, a 2-goal game for Aaron Long. Yes.
Yes. And I think that that's outlandish, but not insane. What do you think? We can veto it if we need to veto it.
No,
there's a real chance he doesn't play in one of the games.
That's true. You know what? I think I should introduce my bet, and then we should figure out for both of them. Let's put them on an even playing field. Okay.
Go for it.
I don't think on its own this is ready, because it does need to be a little bit more outlandish. But I just wanted to introduce the concept of a bicycle goal, a bicycle kick goal.
Okay. Somebody making a bicycle goal.
Yeah. A real one, not like a 3/4.
Yeah, what if it's like a scissor kick,
like volley sort of? No, people know. We know when it's a real one. People say, "Oh, he biked it." That's not real.
You're talking back to the goal, not looking at the goal really when it happens, because there's people who do the sideways. Airborne. Okay, well, I do think you can have a bicycle kick goal where you just sort of fall, and I would still call it a bicycle kick goal. That's not a bicycle kick goal. That's maybe like that's like, you know what that is? That's like when you're exercising with a recumbent bike. You're like sitting and lounging, but you're like, I'm exercising because my legs are moving. Yeah.
That's not what that is.
Okay. So I think that yours is more outlandish than mine. I
really?
think yours is less likely than mine.
Okay.
And I think that we both are not likely. I mean, I have a backup if you want mine to be harder, but I think 2 goals in one game is impressive for any player, and it to be Aaron Long is hard to imagine. And I think bicycle kicks, a pure bicycle kick where someone is airborne, there's a photo of them, nothing's touching the ground. That seems like that almost never happens.
It almost never happens, but it's awesome when it does.
Do you feel like those are fair? I feel like this is our first real wager.
Yeah, I think this will be fun. Yeah, I like having some risk on the other side of it.
Yeah, because okay, good. So those are our bets, and that's our
shot.
Aaron Long.
Sorry.
Ooh, maybe we can have a new name for if I hit, then we rename the segment Aaron Longshot.
Aaron Longshot, yeah.
Maybe episode title. Who knows? Ooh. That's our show, Darren. Why don't you take us away?
That's our show. All right. Before we go, another reminder that we'll be live streaming post game every game. Unless we're just like busy or something, we have lives 10 minutes after both games on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@happyfootsadfoot. There's a link in the show notes. Subscribe while you're there. Talk to us in the chat, and click the link and call in to talk on the show. Be on the show with us. It'll be a lot of fun. That's all we got for you.
Yeah, and I do want to say thank you to everybody who's been tuning in to the postgame and listening on the podcast. The postgame live stream has been getting increasingly popular each time we do it, and the chat has been active. We have a bunch of fun people calling in each week. I've been very touched that people want to be a part of it. So please, even if you don't have a lot to say, If you want to talk for 15 seconds and just say one thing and then hang up, you're more than welcome. If you just want to chat in the chat, that's fine too. I just don't want you to feel like because the last few weeks we've had Vince and Kirk back to back that you have to be an expert. Happy to just talk to you, and you can be as dumb as we are as well.
We had the Saint going to pick his wife up from the airport.
Yeah. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Parking lot traffic.
Our theme music is done by the insane team of James Valentine, Nate Walcott, and Louis Palmer. You can follow us again on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you enjoyed this and have friends curious about the club, LAFC Curious, please spread the word, send this their way. We're doing this entirely on our own dime, so any new listeners really, really means a lot. And I mean that sincerely. It's so exciting to watch this grow. And so I thank you for telling your friends about it. And as always, if you can, please review 5 stars in whatever app you use. It helps other people find our podcast that are looking for LAFC podcasts. Thanks again, and we'll see you at BMO on Wednesday and on the live stream. I love you.
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 I love you a lot.